Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. We're back, first one of the year, 2024. Happy New Year to all our listeners. Happy New Year to my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. We didn't know at the outset of the year exactly when we were going to record our first one. I think there's plenty of snippets that we can hit on today. So before we get into it, Happy New Year to you and your family. I hope 2024 is a great one for all.
Well, right back at you, David. Happy New Year to you, and I'm glad to be back at it again. A lot of things going on in the game this week.
Yeah, and I guess we start with Rafa, right? And let's put the hip injury to the side for a second. I thought, in my personal opinion, this was perfect preparation going into Australia. The reason being, you play 3 matches. The first match he plays Dominic Thiem. He gets through that. He wins his second. The third one, he has 3 match points against Jordan Thompson, loses. But to me, I feel like have Rafa been out basically for a whole year, you need those tight, tense moments live before it happens in a major. Yeah, he fell a little bit short, but I felt, again, preparation-wise was perfect. Now, when he said he felt that same pain in the hip, hopefully that's maybe like a shock to the muscle is what they're all hoping. That's a different story. But let's talk preparation matches alone. You agree with me on that?
Oh,
Great
I do.
prep.
Yeah, I do. Listen, a number of thoughts. First, the team match you mentioned. They had a very good first set that it looked like it was going to a tiebreaker, and Thiem had a bunch of chances to hold to make it 6-all, and Rafa managed to squeeze out a break and then roared through the second set. Thiem's level, he didn't sustain the level that he had in the first set. That was too bad. I thought that'd be a bit closer, but good effort from Rafa for first match back. It was remarkable. Then he blitzed through his next match. So those 2 matches combined took about 3 hours. So it was ideal for him in the sense that he was conserving energy. And then, of course, the Jordan Thompson match came, and that was nearly 3.5 hours. And he was on the edge of winning it, David, at 5-4. He won the first at 7-5, and he's up match point at 5-4 in the second. And he made a great lob over Thompson's head, took the net away from Thompson, who had served and volleyed, and came in. And then Thompson put up a lob that was not too deep, but it was over Rafa's backhand side. And how many times have we seen Rafa on that backhand overhead just snap it away with as only he can? Well, this one, he didn't really go after it the same way. He went for a short angled shot on the backhand overhead and missed it in the net. And then Thompson held on. They go to a tiebreaker, and 2 more match points for Rafa in the tiebreak that Jordan managed to escape. One of them was a relatively easy forehand down the line that Rafa missed. And then Thompson forced him an error on the last one. And then the third set came down to 1 break early, and Thompson won the match, comfortably enough from there. But Rafa did leave the court, to allude to the injury that you mentioned, at 4-1 down in the third down a break, to have that hip injury checked out, and didn't seem too bad when he returned. He was having trouble recovering on his backhand side, but he looked okay, but couldn't get the break back. They had an interesting last game of the match. He pushed him hard. So to long story short, I think your point's well taken. He would have signed up for having 3 matches this week and for getting tested like that, but he wouldn't have signed up for the concern, because the problem is that psychologically, even if the tests show that he's okay and he can proceed now, practice sessions leading up to the Australian, in the back of his mind, he's going to be worried that something like that could happen again, and is I don't want to say likely, but it's entirely possible, and especially in best of 5.
Yes.
This was best of 3 and went almost 3.5 hours. So I'm not saying that many players can do that. Thompson is a very good defender. He's only 55 in the world, and he did end up losing to Dimitrov in the semifinals. But he played Rafa just right, especially a rusty Rafa, in the sense of extending the rallies, attacking when he could. He played a very smart, guileful match, and used his experience and match playing prowess, and he did a good job. And then Rafa, understandably, when he was on the verge of winning in straight sets 3 times, once before the tiebreaker, twice in the breaker, he couldn't quite finish it off the way a typical Rafa would, who's got a lot of matches under his belt. So there was a certain logic to it if you think about it. But the injury thing is concerning. I mean, I'm sure that he hoped that he could get through this week injury-free, regardless of when and where he lost. I don't think he ever expected to win the tournament. But the level was reasonably high, for the first week back. And I think encouraging in some respects. So we'll see what happens going. He's going to have to take it carefully heading into the Australian Open, not overdo the practice sessions. Hopefully we're going to get word soon that whatever the case was with his injury, it's not serious enough to stop him from going forward.
Let's all hope that it's just like kind of what they said, maybe a shock to the muscle, especially playing 3.5 hours. Because again, like you said, it's a whole new world doing it 2 out of 3 versus 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5, he's going to be testing that muscle, depending on how long he lasts in Australia. So hopefully it's nothing but some soreness, and he could have a good week of prep and go from
David,
there. Now, you mentioned
quick point.
Oh, go ahead,
quick
Steve.
follow up to that. Sorry to interrupt. He did say that it made it sound like it wasn't really until, say, maybe 4 to 6 weeks prior to this tournament that he really started stepping up his practice sessions. But there's such, again, a world of difference between practice sessions and actual match play. He'd be the first to admit it. So everything is still relatively new for him. And I think he understood that if he tried to move any sooner than that with getting ready for here, then maybe he never would have shown up here in Brisbane. So all credit to him for the cautious way he's moving forward and how he's trying to navigate this territory. But he did make a couple of other statements, David, is that he doesn't know whether he thinks he still seems to be leaning toward the fact that it's very likely this is his last year. And then he also alluded to the fact that maybe he doesn't get a full year. So he's bracing himself for the fact that maybe he doesn't get through this full year. But we all know that the real goal is going to be to somehow be in peak form for Roland Garros, to give that one last crack to try to get a 15 title at the French Open. And that's really what's in the back of his mind.
100% agree. And, you mentioned Jordan Thompson, who beat Rafa, then loses to Grigor Dimitrov. I mean, Steve, Grigor, it's like a resurgence in his career. And was it 2017 in the semis, he took Rafa to that unbelievable, was it 7-5 in the 5th, if I remember correctly?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a great match. Yeah, a great 5-setter. But over 4.5 hours and play. And I remember I was there and I went to the interview after his very late interview, and how Grigor was actually mad. He's a sportsman, but he was mad. He thought that he could tell he thought he should have won it, and Rafa fended him off in that 5th set. And I frankly think Grigor cost Rafa that Australian Open title, because under similar circumstances 8 years earlier in 2009, Rafa had gone 5 hours, 14 minutes with Verdasco in the semis, but he was a much younger man, and he came back and beat Roger in the finals in 5 sets. This time, he plays Roger again on the heels of a harrowing 5-setter, and he didn't have quite as much energy or physicality. I felt like it was a slightly diminished Rafa, not crippled by any means, but not at his very best either. And I've always thought, if he could have gotten by Grigor a bit faster that year, maybe the outcome of the final would have been different. We'll never know.
We'll never know, right? Let me timestamp this because Grigor's playing in the final later tonight versus Holger Rune. It's Saturday night around 5:15 Eastern time in the States. So I just wanted to timestamp this depending when people listen. We have some finals that we don't have the results yet, but obviously we don't have the draw for Australia, and we'll do the next episode. We'll have the draw, and we'll preview some things. It's going to be interesting depending on Grigor's draw. If he can make a serious run at this. He's been playing very, very good tennis the last several months going into the latter stages of 2023. So can't really project too much about it because the draw's not out, but he's someone you really want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and he's someone he did reasonably well in the latter stages last year against the top guys. Had a win over Alcaraz, had a win over Medvedev. Played Novak in the finals of the Paris-Bercy event. He lost it straight there, but he acquitted himself well against the top players. And I feel like he's got more confidence than he's had in a long time. I could see, maybe best case scenario, I could see another semifinal appearance for him there. I'd be shocked if it went further, but it wouldn't be a bit surprised if there was some kind of loophole or in the draw, or he had one really excellent win that opened things up for himself, and he made it to the penultimate round. That's how I look at Dimitrov's path.
Yeah, I'm eager to see how that plays out. So that's the men's side in Brisbane. On the women's side, we got two familiar names. Sabalenka plays Rybakina in the final. There's nothing that is stopping me from thinking these two are going to be facing each other in latter stages of tournaments all through 2024.
Yeah, they are. They are. That's going to be a fascinating match. Rybakina, I still believe, is probably the best server in women's tennis. And Sabalenka is the most electrifying shot maker. Can hit winners from anywhere. It's a great matchup. It's an exciting matchup. And I think that one will come down. I expect it to be very close as we sit here now in advance of it. And I think that Sabalenka is going to have to return really well. But Rybakina, if she's serving her very best, she's such a tough out. She's a great player when that serve is working at full efficiency.
I'll be eager to see that match. And again, I think they're going to face each other quite a bit this year. Obviously, throw Iga into the mix as well. I want to go down to Auckland now, and Coco Gauff, she plays Svitolina in the final. You know, we've talked a bunch about Coco's run in the summer, especially after the first round loss after Wimbledon. But Steve, in my eyes, even after now that she's won her first major, that being the U.S. Open, seeing her play later in the fall and right now, the beginning of 2024, Steve, she's playing with so much confidence, like a swagger almost on the court. She really has belief in her game. I don't feel, at least from what I can see, any expression on her at all about any real doubts in her game. It's like a mature, stronger, more confident Coco Gauff, and that's dangerous for the rest of the field.
Yes, and I think this was the right way for her to start the year, to come into it. It's not a super strong, because she's not dealing with the Sabalenkas or Rybakinas or the other top players, which is ideal. And I think she's certainly the favorite going into the Svitolina match. And yeah, this has been great preparation for her. And yeah, she is carrying herself with immense confidence and self-assurance. So it would be a big lift if she's able to take this title. It's not a disaster if she loses it, but if she wins the title, it's perfect boost for her going into the Australian. And having won the last Grand Slam title, you know, I think she knows she's one of the favorites, not the favorite. I think certainly Swiatek is the favorite, but you put Coco right in that next bunch of players behind Iga as the strongest candidates to win the title. And I agree with you. The way her demeanor and her outlook and there's almost a quiet swagger out there that's impressive to see.
100%. Now I want to go talk about the United Cup, because you can kind of get lost in that competition a lot. There's a lot going on, you know, in those. I think, what is it, a 10-day event? I could be wrong on that. I think it's a 10-day event, but there's a lot going on with a lot of matches. Alex de Minaur, he now enters the top 10. He's been playing great tennis. Australia did lose to Germany. They won I think it was 15-13 in the doubles. So they play Poland in the final. That's going to be Iga versus Angelique Kerber. Then you got Hurkacz versus Zverev, and then you got the dubs. Those are going to be good matches. Alex de Minaur, obviously not as much of a veteran as Grigor, but again, especially playing in his home country in a couple of weeks in Australia, he's going to be someone we want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he is. Ken Rosewall was saying he thinks that de Minaur has taken his game to an up a level. He got a big boost by beating an off form, but still Novak Djokovic is Novak Djokovic. So I think that de Minaur acquitted himself well, didn't lose his serve against Djokovic in that match. And Djokovic has got the wrist issue, which we can talk about in a minute. But he backed up that win and beat Zverev. And I think I think he has gone to another level, and he does seem determined to prove his critics wrong, that, you know, he can really be a force in this game. And nice way for him to start the year. Another player I want to just mention briefly, and among the group that you referred to, Angie Kerber. Kerber, of course, is Zverev's teammate. Kerber won a terrific match. She had some tough losses during the week, but then she just came off a really nice win over Tomljanovic, where she saved a couple of match points in that third set tiebreak. It was a really hard-fought match and would have been I think very disconcerting for her to lose it. She needed a win like that, so that's nice coming into the finals. Got her work cut out for her if she's going to beat Iga, which I think is highly unlikely. But it's really nice to see Kerber, who of course has won all of the Grand Slam events except for the French Open, back in business after having had a baby. It's nice to see her back, and obviously Naomi Osaka back as well.
Yes, yes, it was good to see Naomi back, and someone a name of note that I should say who's playing doubles for Germany in the finals of United Cup is Laura Siegemund. And for those that remember, especially in the States, Siegemund played Coco in the was it the first round or second round of the U.S. Open? First round, I think.
Yeah.
First round, and there was, a little bit of controversy with pace of play and everything like that. But that's a name that people will remember. In that, I would say, testy early round match in New York as Coco went on to win the rest of her matches in the title. A few Americans I just wanted to point out that unfortunately are going to be out with injuries in Australia. One being Lauren Davis, and in her statement, it was a shoulder injury. She said it was because of the change of pace, the change of the tennis balls at the various events. We've heard that quite a bit from some players. I think the tour's got to find a way to fix that, because players should not be getting injured because of that. Riley Opelka will still be out. And then a third person who's been a guest on our pod, Steve, someone we really enjoyed talking to and watching her play, is Jen Brady. And, Jen, I mean, it seems it has been a few years ago. Unfortunately, when she made the semis of the U.S. Open, when she played that unbelievable match against Osaka, and then the very next slam was Australia, and the following year she got to the finals of that one as well. It's been tough going. She's had a long injury from that point. You remember she played one event in the summer before leading, one or two events leading up to the U.S. Open, won a couple matches in the U.S. Open before losing to Wozniacki. Yeah. You and I enjoy watching her play. You and I really enjoy talking with her. We hope these are not injuries that are going to haunt her whole career. I wish her the very best, and I hope she gets back on tour soon.
Well, David, I think it's got to be I completely in accord. I think it's got to be a little depressing for her right now. She worked so hard to get back, to now be sidetracked again. Now she can overcome this. It takes a lot of resilience, though, because it's not just your physical it's not just your physical recovery, but it's your emotional equilibrium. It's a lot to take. It's a lot of psychological punishment to take. So I hope she can keep dealing with that and get some counsel if she needs it, because these are supposed to be the prime years of her life, and she was headed for something pretty extraordinary. I think I'm not suggesting that she would have been winning majors left and right, but you already alluded to the fact that she had a fantastic semifinal against Osaka at the U.S. Open, followed by a loss to Naomi in Australia in the finals. And so, she was really going strong, and she was showing that she was certainly one of the best hardcourt players in the world. And you would like to see her given the opportunity to physically be back at full force again.
And now, I just saw, and just to be clear to all the viewers, I just saw that she's out. I don't have details on the specific injury, if it's, related to her previous injuries or this is something completely new. I don't know that fact, but I did see that she was out. And
whatever,
that's unfortunate.
Whatever it is, it's not needed, as I'm sure she would say. It's not what she needs. But just to go back to your prior point, David, about the balls. This is becoming an increasing issue in the game. Now, let's talk about Djokovic for a moment, if we may. He comes into this, he had a decent offseason, played an EXO against Carlos, comes into the United Team Cup and looked fine in his first round against China. But then against the Czech Republic, you could see, he had to have the trainer a few times when he played Lehechka, and he managed to win it. A strange match, 6-1, 6-7, 6-1. But you could see he was ailing at times, and the hope was he'd be better for the next match. But against De Minaur, you could see he was very subdued and asking for the trainer again, and confident that he could come out of this, David, in the sense that he's had wrist issues before. But it's not ideal timing. I remember the last time I remember it happening that it was really apparent was Laver Cup of 22, the fall of 22, when he'd missed the U.S. Open because of having not taken the vaccine, and he hadn't really played since Wimbledon. He comes roaring back at Laver Cup, beats Tiafoe, and then when he played Felix FAA a couple of days later, or a day or two later, he was really shaking that wrist out and wasn't happy about it. Fortunately, that one went away pretty quickly. He doesn't need to be practicing, every single day this week. He needs, but by say midweek, he's got to be stepping up his practices and feeling like he doesn't have to worry about that wrist anymore. So, but again, it's happening to too many players. Fritz talked about it last year. A lot of them, they all seem in agreement that the changing of balls, the difference in balls. Rafa's talked about a bit about it too. It's an issue that needs to be resolved because too many players are experiencing wrist injuries on different levels. But certainly, I hope that Djokovic can shake this one off, literally, and figuratively, and get moving again in his quest for an 11th Australian Open crown.
Yeah, no, the tours, I think, there's always sponsorship and there's money involved, but this seems to be a somewhat easy fix if you're looking for if you're looking at the well-being of the players. Now, again, there's a lot of business dealings, and I get all that, and that's obviously plays a huge part in all of the sport and any sport. But this seems, if you're looking out for the welfare of the players, the tours need to fix this, Steve.
Yeah, there's enough physical demands as it is. The schedule is rigorous enough on its own. They're susceptible to so many other injuries, but every player, when you think about their forehand execution, it's the forehand where you see them struggle the most when it comes to the wrist, and you just don't want to see leading players hampered by particularly for the wrong reasons. So I'm not suggesting that it may not be possible that they can find a uniform ball, but they can certainly find a uniform ball for a certain number of weeks. Like, for instance, over the summer, post Wimbledon through the US Open, why not come to some kind of an agreement that all the tournaments will use the same ball through that period? And then you work something out again for the fall so the players can adjust and they don't have to be so worried about this, because it's not good for the game by any means.
I think the players would be in accordance with your thoughts right there. So that'll do it for this episode. The next time we record, it'll be our Australian Open preview. Just because of scheduling, we may be doing it maybe during the first day. We'll see when it all comes out and what we talk about, but it'll still be plenty early in the tournament. We'll have plenty to talk about. As always, you could find our episodes audio only on all the main podcast platforms. Also, feel free to subscribe on YouTube. You get the video version of our conversation. You could see some of the interaction, obviously visually, between Steve and myself during our conversations, and we've had a lot of good feedback of the videos being on YouTube. So please continue to subscribe to that channel. And with that, we're off to a great start, Steve, in 2024, and we're both getting ready for the first slam.
Oh, absolutely, David. Enjoyed it and look forward to our Australian Open conversations, which are not far off.
Thanks, Steve.